Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Serena Williams has silenced detractors, dominated courts, and destroyed records. However, nothing at all prepared Alexis Ohanian or her for the scene that made him cry. It wasn't a loss for the championship or a match point. Nobody could have predicted the unexpected, intimate, and horrifying diagnosis that rocked their existence. Behind the wealth and celebrity, the couple experienced a personal crisis that made them rethink all they had taken for granted. Let's find out the devastating truth they never thought to reveal. From fractured courts to international renown. How can a Compton girl become the one to change tennis's course? Compton existed before the trophies and the celebrity. Despite being born in Michigan, Serena Williams grew up in an area where tennis wasn't expected to flourish. Nevertheless, it did in some way. Under the strict, unwavering guidance of their father, Richard Williams, Serena and Venus trained on dilapidated public courts amid sirens and stray gunfire. He didn't coach tennis. He had a plan, a 78-page plan for excellence to be exact. He obsessively researched the sport, examining player behaviors, studying instructional DVDs, and creating a vision that some believed to be irrational. Despite bigotry, ridicule, and opposition, he remained unwavering. Their mother, who provided them with unshakable faith, technical guidance, and emotional stability, became the silent power behind the storm. She reminded them that there were several ways to be strong. They came together to form a unique team, relentless, laser-focused, and driven by vision and love. Their daily schedule consisted of mental conditioning, taxing drills, and brutal early mornings. The sisters practiced for hours every day, frequently in the middle of danger and distractions like distant gunfire and gangs, but they remained focused on a dream that no one else could see. Serena was an expert by the age of 14. She stunned everyone by winning the US Open at the age of 17. Her service was heartbreaking. She had an unwavering mindset. She has a clear mission. Her intentions went beyond self-interest. She was dismantling boundaries, revising regulations, and redefining the ideal of a champion. In a sport that has historically been dominated by privilege and tradition, she came to represent resistance. However, there was a girl bearing an unseen burden behind every headline: stereotypes, expectations, and the need to be flawless. Furthermore, it wouldn't be the last time she had to endure suffering. A tale of love that went against the grain. What occurs if a software tycoon happens to sit next to a tennis icon by chance? In Rome, it all started around a breakfast table. Serena's attention was on the tennis court. All Alexis Ohanian wanted was coffee. Neither of them anticipated that their time together would ignite a tale of love that would enthrall people worldwide and reshape the ideal of power couples. Despite his lack of tennis knowledge, Reddit co-founder Alexis was immediately taken to Serena's enthusiasm and presence. She was more than just a victor. She was shamelessly herself, brave and magnetic. And for some reason, he was not intimidated by that power. It motivated him. What started out as a straightforward conversation evolved into hours of discussion, unanticipated laughter, and a developing interest in each other's wildly disparate worlds. They were inseparable very quickly, combining two radically different lifestyles into one. He traveled all around the world to cheer her on at competitions. She entered his technologically advanced world, asking questions, exchanging ideas, and supporting him with equal pride and curiosity. It was a wonderful full-circle moment when Alexis proposed in December 2016 at the same hotel in Rome where they had originally met. Their daughter Olympia, a live representation of their love, power, and unity, was born in 2017. And by November, they were wed in a New Orleans fairy tale wedding that had a carousel, a Disney princess dress, and a guest list full of celebrities from all walks of life. The world witnessed the glamour, the glitter, and the Instagram-perfect romance. But there was more going on here. Respect for one another, steadfast assistance, and a unique kind of love that could withstand the most trying times. Before long, that love would be put to the test in ways none of them could have predicted. The cost of being great. When the spotlight fades, what does excellence cost? Serena's dominance in tennis wasn't only based on her skill, it was based on suffering, tenacity, and a body that took the brunt of combat. Her shoulders, back, and knees were all sore from years of exerting herself. Few people noticed the cost she incurred simply to enter the court, but the audience applauded the force of her serve. She didn't simply ignore her injuries. She suffered from mental weariness, emotional breakdowns, and persistent discomfort. She was exhausted after undergoing surgeries, physical treatment, and rehabilitation sessions in between competitions. But when you watch her rule the court, you wouldn't know it. We saw that Serena, the tough, unflappable warrior, but we didn't see that Serena. Before she could even stand, her muscles were screaming in pain when she woke up. She frequently cried by herself in hotel rooms far from home. She was burdened by her family, her popularity, and the demands of a society that never allowed her to stop or falter. Serena eventually started talking about emotional exhaustion, burnout, the silent battle going on within champions' heads, invisible wounds, loneliness, and the toll it all took. In a society that expected perfection, her honesty was uncommon. However, nobody anticipated that her biggest health scar would still lurk in the background. It would also appear when she least expected it to, a birth that almost caused her to break. How could the most joyful time in her life almost turn into her death? Serena gave birth to her daughter Olympia in 2017. It ought to have been the most exquisite day of her life, a celebration of new beginnings, love, and a family. However, that happiness soon turned into a life-threatening situation. After problems developed during birth, an emergency C-section was necessary. And something seemed off right when she believed the worst was past. Serena started having trouble breathing shortly after the procedure. She couldn't ignore the pressure that was tight in her chest. She had previously suffered from pulmonary embolisms. She recognized the symptoms. She begged the medical staff. They brushed her off. She insisted on a scan. It wasn't until they listened that they discovered it. Her lungs clot with blood barely in time. Her fight was far from done, though. Her surgical incision was ruptured during a violent coughing episode. She was hurried back to the operating room. Additional steps were taken. Then, for 6 arduous weeks, she was confined to bed in agony and unable to provide the kind of care she had envisioned for her infant. The physical pain was excruciating. However, the emotional toll was even more severe. Isolation, guilt, powerlessness, and fear. Serena had time to think as she healed. Why hadn't anyone paid attention? Why did she need to put up such a strong battle to be heard? Then it dawned on her. Her tale wasn't the only one. It was incredibly prevalent, particularly among mums of color. She therefore spoke up with clarity and urgency rather than rage. She freely told her tale and used her position to draw attention to the fatal racial inequities in maternal health care. Her voice served as a catalyst, bringing attention to a problem that is frequently disregarded. Her near-death encounter evolved beyond a simple trauma. It turned into a mission. The focus changed as she was starting to regain her footing, because the guy who had always been by her side, her pillar of support through every storm, was now engaged in a quiet struggle of his own. The bulge that made all the difference. When your body fails you once more, what do? Serena discovered a bump close to her neck. The fear struck her like a tidal wave, despite the fact that it was slight, hardly detectable, and simple to ignore. Was it cancer? Was it worse? Even the smallest threat could feel like a monster hiding in the shadows to someone who had once been on the verge of death. After conducting a number of tests, the doctors finally broke the news. A benign cyst in the branchial cleft that is curable and non-cancerous. However, the word benign didn't make her feel any better. Not really, since it's difficult to trust your body again after it has deceived you once. Serena had undergone numerous operations, survived pulmonary embolisms, almost passed away during childbirth, and dealt with the psychological effects of the experience. there was more to this new fright than merely new fear. It caused old wounds to re-emerge. Once the stronghold that helped her win 23 Grand Slam titles, her body now felt erratic, frail, and enigmatic. Serena didn't, however, withdraw into quiet. She went public. She used her voice as a tool of empowerment rather than rage to share with the world what she was going through. Brachial cleft cyst is just an odd-sounding medical name to most people. However, it represented something more profound to Serena: the emotional toll of uncertainty, the need for ongoing attention, and the unpredictable nature of health. More than that, it came to represent tenacity. She transformed anguish into advocacy and fear into purpose once more. She wasn't merely getting by, she was taking the lead, and the outside world praised her fortitude, openness, and poise. However, Serena was absorbing yet another setback, while maintaining a brave front. There was something else going on in the background, something more subdued and unexpected. Because no one, not even Serena, noticed her husband Alexis's silent descent while she struggled with her own illness, and attempted to move on, the fight of Alexis Ohanian in silence. When the rock in your life begins to fall apart, what happens? Alexis started to feel strange. Body aches, brain fog, and exhaustion are subtle at first. He attributed it to overwork. Ultimately, he was managing a developing family, significant business endeavors, and frequent travel. It might have been a cold or burnout. However, the problems persisted. They got worse. Simple tasks started to feel daunting as his energy levels declined daily. He eventually came upon doctors. The answer was eventually provided by test after test: Lyme illness. It was a blow as well as a relief. He at least had a term for what was taking place. However, the road ahead wasn't simple. The course of treatments started. Extended antibiotic courses, rigorous rest, and modified habits. For a man accustomed to controlling timetables, tech empires, and choices, it felt like colliding with a wall. He couldn't argue with the fact that his body had compelled him to submit. Consequently, the roles were switched. Serena took on the roles of reassuring him, motivating him, providing medication reminders, modifying family schedules, and gently reminding him that recovery takes time. Their already solid friendship was being put to the test in a novel way. Now, love had a different meaning. It was in the unspoken awareness that certain days would simply be difficult, the late-night check-ins, and the calm patience. They had been a team all along. However, this task reduced everything to its most basic form. Just unadulterated devotion, perseverance, and support. No glitz or celebrity. And as he was recuperating and reassessing his goals, Alexis made a choice that would fundamentally alter their future: life outside of the court. When the battlefield is gone, what does a warrior do? Serena formally retired from professional tennis in 2022. There was only a solemn, respectful departure from the stage she had dominated for over 20 years. There was no lavish farewell tour or spectacular final match under the lights. It felt like the end of an era for the entire world. For Serena, however, it was a very different matter. Retirement wasn't a place of relaxation. A redirection took place. Her speed remained constant. She only moved her power. Serena established Serena Ventures, a formidable investment company dedicated to assisting creative entrepreneurs, run by women and people of color. She persisted in creating boundary-pushing fashion collections with unreserved courage. She also advocated for global causes that were important to her off the catwalk: access to education, equity, health, and racial justice. This served as both her new battlefield and her new court of champions. As well as Alexis, he stood next to her. She is now her equal partner in vision and principles, not just the tech tycoon in the background. Together, they transformed from public figures to private fighters, leaving a legacy based on purpose as much as victory. But there's still one question. What comes next? A second kid, a comeback to the limelight, or even a startling makeover that neither of them has alluded to. There is no doubt that their narrative is far from over. Not even close. They have persevered through identity changes, health worries, and the silent struggles of existence. They still have a strong bond. They will face whatever comes their way with unity, passion, and shame. For more real-life tales behind the headlines, click the like button, post a comment below, and subscribe if this inspired you. Which point in Serena's trip most affected you, and why? Tell us below.